Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Rye, and today's YouTube video has got me back in the USS Fletcher here in World of Warships. As the battle gets underway, I have to give you a fair warning now. This battle contains a lethal dosage of salt. Some of it is valid criticism and some of it is just outright vile. So do keep an eye on the chat because you will definitely be entertained by that salt. But also keep an eye on the battle, because the battle itself is going to get very, very interesting in the mid and late game. As the battle gets underway, it's the North Winter map. It is standard battle mode, so there's no caps for those of us in destroyers to go after. It is a tier 10 maximum battle with at least 3 tier 10s per team, and there are carriers in the game. So instantly, I've got to deal with sky cancer. Fortunately, there are only a few ships that have radar or have the ability to have radar in the game, so I only really have to deal with sky cancer. And speaking of sky cancer, right off the bat, as I push up towards where the C cap point would be, I have to pop my smoke screen because enemy carrier has got his dive bombers headed my direction. Did briefly spot the Minotaur there, and pay attention to that Minotaur player if you can follow him on the minimap, because he is one crafty and sneaky Minotaur player. While I'm sitting in my smoke screen, I have asked the CV to come help and assist me by dealing with some of these bombers, dealing with some of these aircraft here. I do open up with my anti-aircraft batteries, because, you know, I'm in a smoke screen, I might as well cause some problem. They are only tier 8 aircraft, so tier 9 destroyer AA from the Fletcher can slowly take them out. Not as quickly as I'd like, but definitely slowly for sure. Surprisingly enough, though, the CV opts to fly his dive bombers and torpedo bombers directly over my smoke screen and pushes back towards the friendly ships behind me rather than drop into the smoke screen. Most CV players would prefer to cross-drop into the smoke screen and try to get 1 or possibly 2 torpedo hits on whatever enemy DD lies inside. And here come the dive bombers, so I definitely need to be careful with that. For whatever reason, carriers absolutely love dropping bombs on me. So as they come in, and they do look like they're set up for an attack run here, I start maneuvering hard. I do take 1 bomb. Fortunately for me, it doesn't do a lot of damage. So I'm able to survive that encounter quite effectively and get a good number of aircraft kills, something that you rarely do ever see me do in the Fletcher. I really don't like using my anti-aircraft on this ship because concealment by air is 3.1 kilometers, and yet the anti-aircraft range on the guns is something like 5 kilometers. So if I have him on, I can be seen from 5 kilometers away by airplanes, and if I don't, it's only 3. Now, you may notice, though, that our aircraft carrier in the back, and this is some constructive criticism, is basically all the way back on the border, and he's going to stay there for the entire battle, which really does not help out his situation or the team situation, as it means his aircraft have a longer distance to travel to go to and from the target. More importantly, you'll notice that there are no friendly fighter icons. That's right, our carrier, who is a Lexington, is running a strike loadout. And not having fighters is a major issue for us destroyers, and honestly for the rest of the ships on the team, because he's unable to effectively come in and help defend against enemy aircraft, enemy bombers, enemy fighters, here again spotted by those enemy aircraft, from coming in and attacking us. And I'm not the only person who's now realized that our carrier isn't going to be an effective and useful tool to defend us with. Additionally, as the battle continues pushing forward here, you'll notice we've now lost 2 battleships. That's right, we've lost 2 of our tier 10 battleships. We've lost both our Yamato and our Kurfürst. That is a major blow early on in this game because the enemy team still has a lot of ships as well as both of their tier 10 battleships. And if you've ever played against the Curvers, you know how obnoxious and annoying those ships can be, especially if you get too close to them. Their secondary batteries will start ripping you to shreds. Torpedoes that just passed me by there, a spread of 5, and knowing on the minimap where the enemy Fletcher was, I'm kind of thinking that those belong to the Shimakaze, and I'm a little bit surprised that the Shimakaze is so far back over here. Now that Minotaur pops up again. He's back over there. He fortunately did not push up the side of the island, but somebody did and has gone undetected. We'll see them in a second. Smoke screen up there being laid down by the enemy Fletcher, and I'm contemplating what I want to shoot at. I'm effectively chasing one of these battleships, but the problem is that he's sailing away and effectively sailing into all of those enemy ships. And there are at least 2 destroyers over here that are causing problems and possibly closing in on me. So I fire off a set of torpedoes into the smoke screen, and I fire off a second set where I thought the enemy Fletcher was going to head, but he opts to turn around completely and head the opposite direction. Now, I am very far forward, but for a while there I was radio located, so that tells me that somebody has that, but given the mass of ships over there, it's hard to tell who exactly it was that had it. Do manage to connect with something with a torpedo in that smoke screen. Not entirely sure what I managed to connect to, but whatever I did connect with is flooding, actually, though they're not going to be flooding for too long, as flooding damage is not something you want to take in any ship, and there you can see they've managed to stop it. So their damage control ability was available. They either had a delayed reaction or were otherwise not paying attention for a few seconds. Torpedoes back up there, briefly stop out in the open. Nobody's in range of detecting me. And there on the minimap, you'll notice that the ship that pushed up around the flank there, the side of those islands, the long way around that New Orleans, the ship with radar, has popped up there and is closing in on our base. My team has managed to lose one of our destroyers, giving the enemy team a destroyer advantage, and we've managed to lose yet another ship. So we're down 4 ships to 1. And the battle is getting close to the 10-minute mark. At this point, the whole situation really doesn't seem like it's going well for my team, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better, if it gets better at all. The team really does need to rally. We're still clustered up near our base. Fortunately, though, the cruiser players seem to be very capable of reacting to the threat situation. As that New Orleans pushes up, we actually have a Hindenburg closing in on him as we speak. In the chat there, though, you do see that the assault has begun. And the destroyer in question that we lost is our Tier 10 Shimakaze. And that Tier 10 Shimakaze is the one who is engaging in the assault with the carrier. That's right, the carrier and the Shimakaze are both having a slugfest on assault. Though, to be fair to the carrier, he is effectively defending his own actions. So I understand that. But he's not the only person who's going to get in on the assault. Well, the second person who gets in on the assault is significantly less salty and more constructive criticism levels. Given the attitude being slung about here, I don't really think a lot of people took it that way. I certainly didn't while I was in battle at that particular moment in time. I fire off a set of torpedoes into that smoke screen up there because I'm pretty sure that's where the Minotaur was, though I don't know if those are going to get into range. That's when the enemy Fletcher pops up. Unfortunately for me, he slams on his brake because he's taking too many hits in there. Pops his smoke screen, and my torpedoes are going to miss him as well, passing in front of him. Enemy dive bombers coming in again, turn on my AA suite, and fortunately for me, the enemy carrier manages to miss, and I do take out yet another plane. The enemy team has finally lost yet another ship, but they're still up on points, and they're still in a ship's lead, and of course they still have a destroyer advantage. Sure enough, all of my torpedoes managed to miss, really disappointed by that. that I wasn't able to kill something yet. At this point in the game, the battle's been going on for 10 minutes, and I haven't managed to nail more than 13,000 damage. This battle is not going well for me at this point, but the longer I survive in a game, the more effective and dangerous I become. And really, in this particular situation as a destroyer, I'm kind of playing a defensive role, since I can remain undetected for the most part, and since I'm mobile and fast, I can move myself into position, use islands, reposition, readjust on the flanks, and effectively just cause harassing fire, a delaying action as long as possible, until hopefully the team rallies. And given the threat reaction the team had earlier, you'll notice that the vast majority of them are over down where the C cap point would be on the 8 line. And they've actually decided to regroup and push down the 8 line, which, given the minimap and tactical situation, is actually a pretty good idea for them, as there's not too many enemy ships on that side of the map, with the vast majority of the enemy team on the opposite side of the map pushing up the opposite flank over where A would be. Looking at the minimap situation though, there was an enemy destroyer that was spotted, and that destroyer was pushing up towards our carrier in the back, kind of going hunting for him, and it would seem rightly so that somebody guessed exactly where he was located based on how his planes were flying around. Enemy Izumo pops up there just outside of the smoke screen, and I start opening up on him as I pop my smoke screen, and I do have my smoke screens still available. I haven't had to use them as much in this battle as I thought I was going to. Do set the Izumo on fire, but the Izumo actually manages to put the fire out. So that's actually kind of good for me, because it means if I fire off torpedoes now, and I do have a set of torpedoes coming up, and they hit, and they cause flooding, it means he's going to flood to death. So I fire both sets here down this channel. There's not a lot of maneuvering that he can do to avoid those torpedoes coming in there off to the side. I'm not entirely sure which ship those belong to. It's entirely possible they do belong to the Fletcher, though I haven't seen him in a while. Pull out of my smoke screen there as Izumo shells come in and effectively straddle where I was located. Very smart move there to not stay there, and I kind of figured that that battleship might do that. So I'm pushing up here, and I'm contemplating whether or not I'm going to push up and help screen with my teammates that are starting to push the base. However, looking at the minimap situation with the spotting, the enemy team has also begun to react to that, and they've pulled back, and they're going to start defending that flank. I do connect that on that Izumo with 2 torpedoes and do cause flooding, which is good for me. As you can see there, he's really flooding quite quickly and aggressively. I do believe the carrier also managed to hit him with a torpedo as well, so that poor Izumo really doesn't have a lot of options here. He is just flooding down, and because he put out that fire so early on, that really does impact his ability to defend against the flooding. And I set him on fire as well, so now he's burning and flooding all around by me, and I set another fire on him, which is good. Finish him off with fire, not flooding. Really disappointed in the game dynamics that it will prioritize fire damage over flooding damage for who gets the kill and not what was first. So now I'm out here, and I'm kind of the only one as a result of the battle situation who's on this side of the map. My team is now down to just 5 ships. The enemy team has lost a good number of ships as well, and they're down to 6. My team ends up losing yet another one, so now we're down to 4 ships. The enemy team still with the advantage. But thanks to the carrier and some clever play by other players, the enemy team is now down to just 1 destroyer. The destroyer they have left is the Shimakaze. And that Shimakaze, as it turns out, is quite wounded, as the first torpedo hit I had in the game did connect with him in that smokescreen, as we'll see in the post-battle results. The enemy Grosser Kurfürst is out there, and he is pushing up, and he's the only ship that I can see out there, so I fire off both sets of my torpedoes at him as I contemplate pushing down this other flank. I do have to be careful. The enemy team still has 2 cruisers left. They have an Ibuki, and they have that Minotaur, and that Minotaur is the one ship that I'm most concerned about, and the Minotaur has popped up. as the carrier pushes closer to him. Now the carrier has a problem. 1 tier 10 AA suite from, say, the Kurfürst he could probably deal with. 2, as a result of the Minotaur and the Kurfürst, that's going to really shred up his planes if he comes in for an attack. But you'll notice that that Minotaur, who I didn't even see when I fired off my torpedoes, is perfectly in line with my torpedoes. And sure enough, I managed to connect with 4 and kill him outright and absolutely destroy him. With that Minotaur gone, I'm actually in a lot better position now to deal with this Kurfürst. If you saw the Minotaur video last week, you'll know that the rate of fire on that ship is absolutely monstrous. And if you're a destroyer, it just wrecks you. Now, I did also hit that Kurfürst as well for 3 and cause flooding. And of course, the Kurfürst has now got his flooding repaired. But once that's done, he's going to be in for a real problem. And that's when the friendly carrier sends in his dive bombers and effectively finishes him off. I felt confident opening up on him because I'm sailing away from the Ibuki that's behind me, and I was directly astern of that Kurfürst, which meant his secondary batteries couldn't actually cause me too many problems. But you'll notice that Kurfürst did start pushing up on our carrier, who is still riding the border. Now, at this point, I wasn't entirely sure that we were secured in victory, but now I'm fairly confident that we can secure victory, given how low health that Ibuki is, and given that the enemy carrier has been spotted and is effectively being chased down by our turpets. I'm confident that no matter what, as long as I survive the battle, we should be able to win. There's not a lot of time left in the battle, so I opt to push towards the enemy base and step on it to ensure that if we lose our turpets, and there's a possibility that we could because the Shimakaze has popped up, as you see, very low health, that if we lose our turpets, at least the enemy team won't gain a points advantage in the last few seconds. But that's when surprise Ibuki pulls a U-turn and pops around the corner and causes me problems. Now I did turn around, start heading back towards the base because it looked like the enemy Shimakaze was going to make a run for it, but the turpets actually managed to kill him, which is kind of impressive on that part, but good for him. Do set the Ibuki on fire there as I pop my smoke screen, slam on my brakes, and start wrecking him. I also start reversing because I figured that that Ibuki probably in that kind of turn got torpedoes away, and ooh, he's almost fishtailed right into my torpedo, but he manages to avoid it. Really disappointed by that. Turbis takes out the carrier and then takes out the Ibuki for a double strike, securing victory for the team. Quite an impressive game there at the very end. The last 5 minutes of the game, really a substantial turnaround, all because I managed to nail that Minotaur quite unintentionally and cause significant enough damage to the enemy Kurfürst. 148,000 damage done in that game, 10 torpedo hits, and only 2 kills. But take a look at the scores there. Top of the team for XP earned at well over 2,000 base XP. The next guy on the team, the Turpets, also 2,000 base XP, and the Mogami, almost 2,000 base XP. This is the first time I've ever seen a team with 3 players that are basically right there at 2,000 base XP. All top of the team. Now, what I do feel bad for is the enemy Kurfürst, the one that popped up in chat complaining about the other one, did do quite well there as he earned 1,400 base XP, outscoring the next nearest guy on his team by 600 points, and effectively coming in 5th for overall XP earned in the battle. Again, I feel bad for him when you do that well in a game and you have that substantial of a lead early on and your team manages to blow it. We've all been there. It absolutely sucks. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. I hope you learned about not raging in salt there, of course, as we saw the post-battle results screen. The player who was flinging the salt there was actually bottom of the team for XP earned, while our carrier quite high up on the team. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me in the channel, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you got a World of Warships replay like this one, especially those ranked battles since that's starting up, that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can send it to my email address. And if you'd like to watch me play games live, you can follow me on Twitch. You can also find my live streaming schedule for the week pinned to the Facebook page. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.